Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Hush, and I am here with Manuel Godoy, CEO and publisher of Black Sands Entertainment, everybody. All right, so let's get right into it. So, Manuel, you actually served in the U.S. Army. Briefly tell us, what called you to serve, what called you to put on the uniform, what was your job, and, what did you take away from the military?
Yeah, so I joined the military because I saw my grandfather. He was a retired army, and he was having a good life. He's very comfortable compared to his other colleagues and stuff like that. I noticed that. I said this is a career, right? And I wanted to have that career before I even got out of high school. So I signed up at like 17, right? And the second I graduated, I went into the military, and just went into the army directly.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So, let me just ask you, it seems like it's a family affair for your family, for the military. Really, what did you hope to get out of the military? People join for different reasons, whether it's tradition, whether it's money for school, whether it's, just a call to serve others. What was your primary goal, and objective in joining, and what really pushed you?
Well, I don't know. Like really, it was more of a career type thing, right? Like I had seen what retirement does for people and stuff like that, and I was planning for sure to do, my 20 years. Uh, what happened was I actually had bad knees and stuff like that, and just couldn't go from there. So I just had bad knees, so I couldn't do anything. I couldn't continue my service, right? And that got me out. But I was very much a part in that life, and I definitely didn't want to leave. You know.
Right, right. So listen, if y'all just tuning in, my name is Brother Hush. This is Mu Beta Phi Military Fraternity Incorporated's Black History Month celebration. This is our last interview just to cap off February. And I am talking with Manuel Godoy, U.S. Army veteran, turned number one indie publisher in America, Black Sands Entertainment. Just briefly giving us a synopsis of his military career, his service to the country, and then what prompted him. So let's dive into post-military life. Like usually the transition period can be hard for some veterans just because you don't know what you want to do. You've taken on this identity for so long. So what was the transition period like for yourself?
Well, I was mostly unemployed for a long period of time. I was a, a telecommunications engineer for a short period of time after I got out the military, which was an amazing job. But then that was outsourced to, like, the entire field was outsourced to India. Basically that was it. I couldn't do anything about it. So I had to change careers, but there was no more opportunities. There were like really gainful employment. So I ended up having to just go to college, get an education, and then ended up doing comic books.
So, I mean, you went to college. What spurred you while, you're doing your studies to get into comic books? I mean, usually it might just be, hey, I've always wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor. Like you don't just wake up one morning unless you were this little kid that just read comics growing up your whole life and that's what you dreamed of. Because usually if that is your dream, I rarely have seen people join the military and then get into something artistic of that nature. But what spurred you during your studies to get into comic books?
Personally, it was just like minimum viable product. I wanted to make video games, and it just was so expensive. So I ended up telling my story through comic books, and then that took off, and it just became a very viable business model. And then we just kept running with it.
So, where did you come up with the name Black Sands Entertainment? And people that don't follow you, they should. Okay, if you can Google Black Sands Entertainment, you'll see what spurned that name and the whole theme. Because I feel like your brand has a theme to it and it's unapologetic. Which is why I love it. So, what spurned it, and what inspired you to come up with Black Sands Entertainment?
Well, Black Sands is the literal translation of the ancient word Kemet, which is the name of the country for Egypt. So, really it's just, the story's called Egypt, the company's called Egypt Entertainment, right? And that's really where it was from. It wasn't like us doing like a Black Panther thing or something like that. You know what I mean?
So definitely it does help with branding because if you just say, hey, Egypt comics, you're like, oh, okay. Then you just think of pharaohs. And it seemed like, if I'm a reader, I'm a fan. You dive into the lore and you mix not only mythology but historical facts within your stories in order to kind of teach the youth, okay, well, this is how it was perceived back in the ancient world for real. This is not just some gods of Egypt type of storyline. You really dive into the history of Kemet, Kush, all of those places. So what spurned that? Usually sometimes cartoonists and writers, they like to really delve into the imagination. You actually like to mix history in there.
Oh yeah, well, I just love history, man. It's one of those things that I've always been a big fan of, so I decided to tell the story because I was wondering why everybody tells an ancient story about a culture in the Mediterranean, but don't talk about any of the other cultures. Like I thought that was so weird. It's like Egyptians were not solo in the world. They basically had to deal with their neighbors all the freaking time, and they were right next to the largest body of commerce in the world. There's no way this story about Egypt is always exclusively about Egyptians. This can't be, So we decided to tell a story that involved everyone in the Middle East at the time, and I guess people really gravitated toward that kind of experience.
So what do you think it does for the youth that actually read this stuff? Like I grew up, just reading Avengers and Wolverine. That was my favorite comic character. And just, immersing myself into stuff that wasn't based on parts of reality, and a lot of yours is. What do you think that does to the youth that actually read that? Or what is your hope that the young readers get out of it?
Uh, well, I, um, well, I know specifically for African American youth, it's just a way for them to finally see some African cultural stuff, right? That they just typically are not exposed to. For instance, even my kids nowadays, like they're like sending letters out in first grade talking about uh, this month they're going to talk about Egyptian and Mesopotamian cultures, and I'm just thinking in my head and watch them be blonde. Right? Right? Just thinking in my head, I'm like, first grade, watch these little Egyptians be blonde or something like that they're seeing in these books or whatever, right? Because I just can't help but think that they don't want us to have any culture in general, like anything that happened before slavery. And so for me, that's what it means. And, that's why, 55% of our customers are parents, right? Because they feel the exact same way that their kids need that exposure. And the kids love it, man. They love seeing something about them, right? Not everybody wants to grow up to be Julius Caesar, right? Especially if you don't look like Julius Caesar. So,
And that's a big thing. Like as a parent, I like to expose my kids to a lot of things, but I'm very sensitive to self-identity. And, I would like you to expand a little bit more of what self-identity means to you and the power behind it.
yeah, well, the main things that drive our company, especially our fans, just simple fact that we're so rebellious compared to the Hollywood agenda-driven media. Basically, they curate the stories that Black and Hispanic creators can tell, right? They just feel like certain ideas or certain stories are either non-marketable, right? Or they like using that term just to shoot it down, or not right for the consumer, right? Because they know, Black and Hispanic viewers better than Black and Hispanic people. So, so what we have to do is, we got to independently create this stuff ourselves, in order to be able to tell our stories. And if we pull it off properly and make it more profitable and everything else, then we'll really break the industry, which has been historically just opposed to any, real creativeness from the Black and Hispanic community. That's just how it's been, and everybody knows it. That's why it's not a hard idea to sell. I don't have to re-educate people into thinking that they already believe it before before we even bring it up. So
Mm. So let me ask you this question. You came up with this idea, and definitely, I always tell people entrepreneurship is not easy. It can be fun, it can be rewarding, but it's not easy. How did you become an entrepreneur?
just by force, it had to happen. I just couldn't find gainful employment from where I was. I've been making close to 80, 100,000 a year. And then all of a sudden, the entire field gets outsourced. No transitional ability to my job. He said, I'm not going to start over. So I had to go and build a new path, one where I didn't have to worry about other people deciding my fate, and that's what I did.
So, what were some of the hiccups, when you got Black Sands off the ground? Definitely sometimes people look towards the old model of, hey, I'll build this prototype, I'll build this, and then I'll go find a sponsor. You know, what were some of the struggles and the hiccups you actually encountered? And then when did
I
you
think it
feel
was
like you, Mhm.
I think it was doing things that for the deal. Like sometimes people make decisions based entirely on getting a deal with a major house or something like that, and these decisions can cost you a lot, right? For instance, I went to the American Library Association's ridiculously expensive event in order to meet with major publishers and distribution centers for like libraries across the nation. It didn't matter if I was there or not. I was is that say if you weren't from a major publishing house already, you weren't going to do any business there because they do things a certain way. And but that's a $3,500 mistake. Boom, right there, right? He said trying to get publicity as an indie is extremely hard compared to if you were published through what's it called. So spending money on 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 that was a $10 million, I mean a $10,000 mistake. It's like every time you said there's things that you're trying to do because you noted in the industry this is what they do, right? But it's not right for indie publishers. It's just not there's no value to those processes because you're not part of that in crew in the first place that these things cater toward. So for me, it was trying to get to a standard that really had nothing to do with where I was in the industry. And that's probably something that almost all creators have to go through in life. The only difference is I learned from that and I decided to go rogue and do everything my way, right? A lot of people still 10, 20 years later are still trying to do everything according to the industry standard, even though they're not part of the industry. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people get hung up on is it doesn't always pay to be with the in crowd. Sometimes you got to create your own lane in order to progress. Let's talk real quickly into some of the facts that you would like to pass on to those who want to get into the comic book industry or the animation industry. Five things that you know you shouldn't either do or you should do. Five things, and it could be a mixture of you should do these two things, you shouldn't do these three things, whatever comes to mind for those who want to get into that whole artistic realm.
Well, the first thing I would say is read Save the Cat. I don't. It's just a heavily endorsed book I love about writing. Uh, there's a problem. Most writers don't ever like conceptualize what their story is about before they start writing, right? Or they write 12, 13 different ideas. I got tons of characters. Like it's like you got to figure out how to go to market with a product, right? Your whole approach is too creative, right? It's like it's cool to do that when you're 15 years old, But every minute that you're burning making ideas and stuff like that, as minutes you're not making money. So you better figure out how to be efficient, right? And get to market and figure out whether your product's good or not. If it's not, you can always rebuild. But if it takes you 5 years to make your first comic book and it flops, you know, that'll suck. Rather it be like 3 months, you know what I'm saying? So efficiency and speed is probably the most important factors. Reading to Save the Cat helps you significantly on the writing department. And you said just think first. You got to get to market. Otherwise, you'll never know if that idea is worth the actual time commitment that you want to put into it. Putting 2 or 3 years into something and finding out it flops is literally the worst feeling in the world. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, and then I took three good things out of that. Um, what are some of the gimmies that you got out of the industry that you've learned along the way? Just
Give
little
me
like thing. I like to say stuff that you would think is common sense, but people don't think about it. And you're just like, really? You know? Because people, I really believe that they should research an industry before they try to jump in.
Yeah, my thing is this. Um, there's two type of businesses you should run. There's industry business, right? If you're an industry guy and you're trying to be an industry guy, there's certain products you need to make and certain avenues you need to do in order to get that to happen, right? So for an industry guy, you don't want to have an entire comic book. You don't want to make 5, 6 comic books. There's no point. You need to have a small pitch available to pitch to the industry and work on the next pitch. That should be your idea. It's just making a whole bunch of small pitches with like some art to show what it looks like, but you should never finish a project because the industry wants things that customers might not want, right? They're just not interested in that product, right? Everybody tries to double dip. They want industry stuff and what's it called? When I make industry stuff in it, like make a film or an animation series that I want to give to the industry, I'm not going to make that whole show myself. I'm gonna go and make just enough concept and a deck and everything else to pitch out to people, and they can decide whether they want to go in and fund it or not. But to me, to do all that work would make absolutely no sense, and would just stop me from being able to do anything productive on my side. So 100%, if you're an industry guy and you want to get published by Dark Horse or Image or whatever, make pitches. Just focus on pitches. Make a whole bunch of pitches and shoot them as many as you can. And don't worry about Kickstarter. Don't worry about AS stuff because it's not worth it. You need to just pitch. That's your whole job. If you're not one of those and you actually want to be an independent creator and make comic books, then you need to make your stories for your target audience. That means you don't care about what the industry thinks about your titles. You don't care about what standards Marvel or DC or Dark Horse has for how characters look and their appeal and all that stuff. You just don't care because that's not your core customer, right? And that's the problem. It's just people don't understand that they're supposed to make a product for the customer. And if the customer is the industry, it's a completely different product from the customer that's an indie comic buyer. You understand?
Totally. Totally. You got to know who your customers are and how to properly target them. So I really like what you do. You actually, you have people that invest into the company, and you give them opportunities to grow with you. You can. I've seen you do your casting calls. You can do casting calls with your stakeholders. You give them previews before it hits the market. What inspired you to come up with these things to actually entice your stakeholders to grow with you? Usually people Kickstarter, Patreon, whatever. Let me just get the money, we funder money, 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 and then just take what I give you. What inspired you to actually bring in your investors and say, hey, we're going to grow together?
Well, it's just a way to give people long term. The idea is that you ever heard of like a military commander, right? The idea is that they can't fail, and thus you
Right.
want to follow them into battle, regardless of how pointless the battle may seem, you're like,
Right.
nah, man, this dude don't lose. We just need to stick with him, right? So
Hmm.
that's the aura I'm trying to convey at all times is the idea of invincibility, right? And what that means is there has to be so many opportunities for my supporters that nobody else is giving. That it's just a clear differentiator when they're talking about black creatives. Oh yeah, this guy makes comic books. This one too. They said, all right, but how many people are voice acting for them, getting paid voice actors? How many of them got publishing deals to their fans? Right? How it's like this, like this. They have a long, ridiculously long list of things that I offer to my followers, fans, other creators who publish on my app, right? That just people just don't have, they just can't compete with that. And that level of like, um, just a laundry list of things that you could just straight up compare, makes it where everybody decides this is the guy that we have to follow. You know what I mean? Like there's too many opportunities. I don't want to miss it. It might be my turn, right? Everybody who's following me thinks it might be their turn for the next big thing. Whether they're an investor, a patron, customer, whatever it is, feel like they can't miss out on what's about to happen. They don't know what's going to happen. They have no clue how the battle's going to end, right? They just assume that, you know, good things are going to happen.
Wow, and I think that's so true, you know. So to end this out, where should people follow you? Website, app, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Black Sands Entertainment, and our app is ready for pre-register now, so people can start pre-registering for that. They also can on either iOS or Droid. The link is in our bio. Additionally, we could always sign up for Patreon if you want to sign up at patreon.com/Black Sands. It's a monthly subscription system, so you can pay like $5 to get all our comic books and a whole bunch of other opportunities, right? And we have like about 1,400 members right now, so it's pretty good. You know, it's a big community. Oh,
It
and
definitely
you
is.
know, yeah, you guys. So there's plenty of stuff to do. You know, we're always looking for new talent too. So anybody who has actual comic book published, you know, hit me up. We'll see what we can, if it's a good fit for Black Sands Publishing, and we'll go from there.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much, Manuel Godoy, everybody. Manuel Godoy. So listen, Mu Beta Phi Military Fraternity Incorporated. This is what we do. This is how we give back. Please log on to www.mbphi, that's PHI, Kings2017.org. Once again, www.mbphi, PHI, Phi, Kings2017.org, and continue to like us on Facebook, Mu Phi Kings 2017. I'm Brother Hush. Thank y'all so much. Let's continue to celebrate Black history throughout the whole entire year. Peace, everybody.